Barely a year into his United reign, Amorim was unexpectedly sacked, despite leaving the Red Devils in a respectable 6th place and on track for a Champions League qualification spot. However, his sacking wasn't due to his team's results. If it were, he would have been dismissed during tougher times, not when progress was being made. So, how did it all come down to this? And how did Amorim's project fall victim to the impatience and incompetence of United's leadership? Arriving in November 2024, fresh off an eventful stint at Sporting, Amorim aimed to lead the club into a new era, a goal that Ineos clearly shared. He came equipped with clear ideas about what he wanted to achieve based on Ten Hag's failures, focusing primarily on curbing player power and establishing a defined playing system. But while he found success in some areas, it's safe to say he wasn't fully prepared for everything else that came with the job. Taking charge of 2/3 of the 2024-25 season, Amorim watched United plummet down the league table as individual mistakes crept into a squad that was already low on confidence from the end of Ten Hag's reign. Still, he stuck to his plan A, believing the short-term suffering, as he described it, would eventually yield long-term success.
They've been hopeless in the system. They've been absolutely hopeless.
You know, he's playing 3-5-2, it isn't working. Good managers change.
Bringing a manager like that in terms of the system that he played, I don't think ever really suited the club of the traditions of Manchester United.
Especially in the bad moments, you have to go with your gut, and I always go by that, no matter what. I think it's the most important thing in the manager, right or wrong sometimes, but that is, for me, it's the key point of being a manager.
With their fate in domestic competitions all but decided, the focus shifted to Europe. But while their road to the Europa League final offered some respite, as well as some thrilling memories, the season builders' Bilbao or bust ended in disappointment with a final loss to Tottenham. Tottenham, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, it takes a whole new level of being shit to hand Spurs their first trophy in nearly 20 years. United ended last season in 15th, but it was widely accepted that Amorim had inherited a poorly constructed squad, with his case built on mitigating circumstances. The hope was that improvements would come after a pre-season and during a campaign free from European commitments. The summer certainly felt like the start of a new chapter. The signings of Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo and Benjamin Sesko were indicators that United still held appeal despite not competing in Europe, while structurally the club's hierarchy appeared to be backing Amorim with a commitment of at least 3 years. By November there were clear signs of improvement, particularly in attack. However, United still muddled through most of the season, grappling with familiar issues and struggling to convince their wide and disparate fanbase that the good times Amorim spoke of at the end of last season were on the horizon.
I want to tell you, the good days are coming.
The 1-1 result against Leeds and Amorim's subsequent sacking meant United picked up just 13 points from his last 9 games in what was a run of relatively modest opponents, even if they were in 6th place and within touching distance of the Champions League spots. But let's be frank, Amorim was not sacked because of his team's results. Sure, a string of mixed results didn't help his case, and you can certainly question his in-game decisions and fielding of multiple defensive players despite them not defending well at all. However, progress isn't linear. And United were on the right trajectory under Amorim, who kept the ship steady even with a squad depleted by injuries and other absentees. By the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, we'd be incredibly grateful if you subscribed. Your support helps us grow and continue creating the content you love. Amorim had called out his players and himself before.
We are being the worst team, maybe, in history of Manchester United.
But a fiery press conference following the Leeds game was the first time he turned his sharp criticism toward the powers above.
No, guys, I just want to say that I came here to be the manager of Manchester United, not to be the coach. And every department, the scouting department, the sport director needs to do their job. I will do mine for 18 months and then we move on.
Thank you, guys.
He finally exposed tensions that had been simmering behind the scenes in recent weeks regarding the hierarchy's interference in his tactical decisions, supposedly his domain of authority. And while their relationship had once appeared strong, the tone of Amorim's remarks indicated a marked change. He effectively urged United's hierarchy to trust him with the level of control and authority he believed he deserved and had been promised to begin with. Compounding this high-pressure situation was the board's lack of January transfer commitments, which further frustrated Amorim. But after implicitly asking them to either back him or sack him, they ultimately chose the latter. Now he departs United as one of their least successful head coaches, having arrived with grand ambitions to change the culture and philosophy, only to be dismissed for calling them out for failing to follow through on their agreed plans. It's utterly perplexing on the hierarchy's part. First, you signed Amorim mid-season even though he clearly wished to join in the summer. You signed 5 players for him over 1 year, while over 8 departed. And before all this, you went out of your way to appoint a project manager who you know deploys a defined system, even removing then sporting director Dan Ashworth for vetoing the appointment, only to force him to change that system later, without even giving him a full season to prove himself. By contrast, Amorim, to his credit, stuck to his path, but that commitment is partly why he lost his job. He was United's first head coach in this new era, but in the end, he fell victim to many of the same cumulative issues that have plagued every manager of the post-Ferguson era. When United approached Amorim in October 2024 following Ten Hag's dismissal, he had expressed his preference to see out the campaign with Portuguese champions Sporting, citing loyalty and the difficulty of introducing his system in the midst of a congested season. However, United's hierarchy wouldn't hear of any of that, and the way Amorim explained it to reporters after taking the job was that he was told it was now or never. This ultimatum in the face of Amorim's concerns would have made more sense if there had been any indication from the board that their approach was rooted in an overarching football vision. But this is United we're talking about, and as is often the case in football, it was an appointment driven by the club's almost cult-like obsession with a brand new idea. Blinded by the candidate's shiny baldness, I mean personality, their charm, and their track record. Ashworth, who joined United in July 2024 to spearhead that vision, had voiced concerns about whether Amorim's ideas would align with the squad he was inheriting. However, those concerns were largely ignored, and Ashworth soon found himself marginalised before leaving the club just over a month later by mutual consent. The curious aspect of Amorim's tenure was that poor results were tolerated over a tumultuous 12 months, with the club emphasising their unwavering support for a struggling coach, even backing him against academy darlings like Rashford, Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo, until his preferred system suddenly became a sticking point just before Christmas. The hierarchy's approach makes very little sense because Amorim's entire philosophy is built around playing 3 at the back, and because, while progress was painfully slow, that period from early October to late December 2025 was the first time in his tenure when there were at least some signs of a potentially viable approach. That's not to say United lacked justification for sacking him, but you can't deny that the timing of the decision was poor. If there was ever a time to challenge and evaluate Amorim's system, it should have been at the end of last season, or even better, as Ashworth recommended, before hastily appointing him despite the obvious concerns. Never before have football clubs had access to so much information, or employed so many technocrats to ensure a coherent vision and identity. Yet United's hierarchy continues to repeat the same mistakes, just packaged differently. And if you make a decision this early with 18 league games remaining, the obvious question is why wouldn't you at least appoint someone who offers a greater guarantee of a strong league finish? Are the current candidates even better bets than Amorim? The fact that the hierarchy is considering bringing back Carrick among Solskjaer and Van Nistelrooy for the caretaker role smacks of a desperate attempt to signal that they're in touch with United's identity. Yet it shows a disconnect with what a modern football club truly needs to be successful. In 2024, Roberto De Zerbi had his own heated press conference moments at Brighton, which seemed just as provocative, if not more so, than anything Amorim had recently said. The Italian had cast doubt over his Brighton future by openly questioning the owner's ambition and asking about the Tony plan, referring to owner Tony Bloom. That was back in March. But did Brighton fire De Zerbi then and there? Nope. Instead, they wisely decided to keep him until the end of the season before making their move. Chelsea's mid-season appointment of Liam Rosenior, who looks like someone straight out of your company's IT support team, is at least understandable in terms of his work within the Blueco network, which begs the question of why Ratcliffe's own multi-club operation couldn't offer United a broader network of managers to draw from. Plus, is it truly wise to wait for someone to become available after what will be the biggest and therefore longest World Cup ever, especially when pre-season will be shorter? And can United even be trusted to make the right appointment again after the decisions to retain Ten Hag and hire Amorim? Moving forward, United must prioritise a balance in its overall structure. Recruitment, for instance, cannot solely be run by the coach. Otherwise, you'd end up with something akin to Ten Hag's side, a reunited Ajax team expected to compete in the Premier League. At the same time, there must be room for compromise and an understanding that a top-class manager will always challenge and provoke his employers just as he would with his players, especially if he's the only one facing media scrutiny about decisions made by those above him. At this point, I'm convinced that no manager, except for maybe Golden Leg Fung, can truly succeed at United, let alone navigate both the internal and external politics. Ultimately, the core issue is that the club has never fully come to terms with the end of Sir Alex's era, not emotionally and certainly not operationally.
And we're going to finish off. I want you to give a message to all Manchester United fans watching. This is your opportunity to speak to them. What would you say?
That is a great responsibility. The first thing is that I'm really honored to be here. It was my only choice because I think I really feel how big this club is. I will do everything for the team.
If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more content like this. Also, don't forget to hit the notifications bell so you never miss a beat. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.